Hey there, and thanks for stopping by to check out my video. I think we've got a lot of fun content here in the works, and that's around the concept of long-range match shooting, but with a bit of a twist. Now, if you've been around my channel, I suspect you're probably noticing a trend and that I'm shooting more matches here recently, and that's because they're super fun. They're a great way to challenge yourself and improve your long-range precision rifle skills. Now, I suspect many of you are also like me in that here in the Southeast, I only have access to about 100 yards to be able to frequently practice, and that makes it challenging to go into a long-range match with any level of confidence around doing well. This is exactly how I grew up learning to shoot long range and shoot matches, and what I found is that 100 yards, you actually can practice quite a bit to improve your effectiveness in a long-range type match. Now, will you be able to go out and confirm your data all the way out to 1,000 yards and true your BC up? No, you can't do that at 100 yards. But what you can do is practice some fundamental skills that you'll use in every match. Things like rapidly getting into your position, finding your targets, dialing your scope, transitioning between shooting positions, practicing positional shooting, and using your gear effectively on the clock. All of that you can practice at 100 yards, and I intend to show you in this video. So the flow of the video, at the end we're going to wrap up with some footage around a local long-range match I just shot here in North Georgia. You'll get an idea of the stages in that match and how I performed. But the emphasis of this video is actually on what I did prior to that match at the 100-yard line to get ready to shoot that match. So I'm going to bring you along to my prep session at 100 yards and show you what I did with my gear and then show you how I performed in that match. So if you like the sounds of that, stick around. From here, we're going to move into a gear review. Then we'll move out to the 100-yard line, run through the drills. Then we'll move into the match shooting footage. And at the end, we'll wrap up with a summary of how I shot and how it all came together. I'm really excited about the gear we're going to run in this video. I've actually got two new rifles that we're going to take out to the range and put our first rounds through to get an idea of how they perform. The first being my new 16-inch 5.56 DMR style build. Really excited about this rifle as this can give me a 16-inch 5.56 to use in future content, very similar to what many of you might be running as a carbine or DMR style rifle. Through the rounds I've put through this rifle so far, I'm impressed with the accuracy, and it's got something really cool that I can't wait to show you. So specs on this rig will be a lower from Griffin Armament. It's their Mark II. You've seen it in previous content. They sent it out to me for use on the channel. It's currently equipped with the Ballistic Engineering core trigger. The rounds I've got in it so far, I've really grown to like the ambi controls, the bolt release, a bolt lock, right hand safety on this lower, and that core trigger has proven to be reliable, very crisp, clean break, making it easy for precise shots, but then very fast follow-up with the very short reset. So the lower, you've seen it before, that's what we're going to use. So far, I really like how it handles from an ergonomic standpoint. The upper on this, really cool. So the upper, the bolt carrier, the bolt, the charging handle, that all came from Aero Precision. Really appreciate their support here on the channel. They're new, and so far the components they sent out have been very high quality and came together very well. The barrel on this is a Ballistic Advantage 16-inch Hanson profile barrel. So it's a quite thin barrel, but with the rounds I put through it, and you'll see it 100 yards, I think it shoots very well. It's a really nice, lightweight, and handy rig, especially without the suppressor on it. Now the cool thing about this build is going to be the handguard. This is a 14-inch black label handguard that they sent me to use on the channel. Now you'll notice this handguard looks very sleek. There's no bipod on it. Seems to handle quite well. I like how it feels in the hand. It's a little bit tall, but that's because it actually has an integrated bipod. So you can flip down your bipod and now you're ready to go to take that precise longer shot. Once you're done with that, you can fold these up fairly quickly and you're back to a very maneuverable and sleek handguard. Really excited to see how this holds up and how it performs for precision type shooting. I will run my Griffin Dual Lock 7 suppressor, which you see here on this rifle for this content. Optic for this video is going to be my Arkin SH4 4-16. They've sent it out to me for use on the channel. It's got a Christmas tree style reticle in it. That 4-16 magnification is plenty for making shots out to 1,000 yards if I wanted to. So that's currently how we're set up. Really excited to try this rifle out. You're going to be seeing it in future content. It shoots very well. That 16-inch barrel pushing 77 grain ammo is going to get me out there plenty far. So what are we going to run out of this rifle for ammo in this video? Well, I'm actually going to run some AAC 77 grain OTM. So this is ammo that I recently purchased for myself. This has got a great price from Palmetto State Armory. I've had many comments from several of you asking about this ammo, and I decided to give it a try. So I purchased up a couple hundred rounds of this. I'm going to run it through this rifle. We'll get an idea of groups at 100, what it's doing for velocity, and we're going to use it for training out of this rifle. So stick around. You'll see a lot more from this rifle coming up. If I'm shooting that 5.56 DMR as my trainer rifle, you're probably wondering, what rifle am I actually going to shoot in the match? Really quick, let's think about the concept of a trainer. You want a rifle that's going to be cheaper to shoot, with longer barrel life than your match rifle, but have similar ergonomics, trigger pull, recoil impulse, and feel as you move with that rifle as your match rifle. That way you get a similar training experience to what you'll experience from your match rifle at lower cost. And that's exactly what we have going on here. So for a match rifle, I'm really excited as we're running my new 6-ARC from Brenton USA. If you're like me, prior to Brenton reaching out to me and providing this rifle for me to use in future content, you probably hadn't heard of Brenton USA. So I did a bit of Googling online and found they're a Michigan-based AR manufacturer that tailors their product to the hunting community. So this is a hunting-focused AR that I believe is going to perform very well in the type shooting that I do. You're probably asking yourself, what is different from a hunting AR and a tactical AR? The first thing that I notice is going to be caliber selection. On the Brenton website, I find it's got many caliber options that are unique to hunting. Straight wall cartridges, maybe that are required in certain states, maybe some of your smaller high velocity rounds, etc. In this case, I chose 6-ARC because I really enjoy shooting 6-ARC. I know it'll get out to distance no problem. This is a great varmint round that many of you are probably starting to run. But other things that you'll notice about this rifle will be the features on the rifle itself. For instance, we're missing a forward assist. The handguard is very sleek and it feels like a traditional hunting rifle. It's not going to have M-lock slots or Picatinny all along the top. It's still free floated, which we want for accuracy, but the handguard is very different from a tactical type rifle. And then the rifle ships from the factory with a thread protector versus any kind of muzzle brake or flash hider. So those are the features that I notice on the rifle that will differentiate from a hunting crowd versus tactical. Also, the paint this came with, the camo pattern, really cool, really looks neat. And they've got several options online. Most of your tactical rifles are going to come in black or FDE, or you coat them yourself, versus this comes from the factory, this really unique paint job. Now, something that's going to be similar for a hunting crowd and a tactical crowd will be the reliability. Brenton really promotes a high quality build, and I see that in this rifle, but they really promote their rifles performing when you need them to, the reliability, and that's critical for both communities. As a tactical shooter or a PRS competition style shooter, I want a rifle that's going to perform every time I pull the trigger, because if it goes down on the clock, I'll zero the stage and I'll do terrible in the match. Not what you want. You want to be able to rely on your gear, whether you're on that once in a lifetime hunt for that trophy animal, or you're competing in the PRS series and you're really big in the running and you're up there at the top. You have to make sure that rifle is going to perform. So really excited to see how a hunting focused AR performs the type of shooting that I do. Long range, higher round count, rapid fire. Will this Brenton hold up? My initial impressions tell me it likely will. Very quality build, seems to be a really nice product. Now, specs on the build. The rifle is factory from Brenton USA. So it's going to come with the Magpul stock. It's got a Hogue grip on it. It's got a really nice single stage trigger in it. The trigger is probably what I'm most impressed with. Many times you get a new AR and you instantly swap the trigger out. I don't have that urge with this rifle. It's got a very crisp single stage break. Hybrid trigger bow here, kind of between a flat and curved trigger face. It feels nice in the finger. The handguard, as I mentioned, is going to be Brenton. The barrel is going to be an 18-inch, 1 and 7.5-inch twist, 6-ARC. And if you look online, they have an accuracy guarantee. You'll see how this rifle performs here at 100 yards. I'm impressed with the accuracy. Notice I put my Griffin Armament Dual Lock 7 suppressor on this rifle. Sometimes you throw a suppressor on a 6-ARC rifle without an adjustable gas block, and you don't know what to expect. So stay tuned in this video for an idea of how this rifle is going to run with this Griffin can on it. Now remember, the Griffin can is going to be a lower back pressure design, which is going to help out the reliability of the system. For an optics package, I'm going to be running my Leupold Mark V 5-25. Scope was provided to me by Ally Munitions. It's also equipped with a Trimmer 3 reticle. So really excited about this optics package. Really appreciate Ally and their support of my channel. They've been a huge supporter for a while now. If you think about your next long-range purchase, don't forget to check out Ally Munitions. They're great folks. They've been great to me and helped me grow this channel. Very thankful for their support. The optic is going to be mounted in a zero gravity 1.7-inch mount that was provided to me by Zero Gravity for use on the channel. It's in their new FDE finish, which I think looks great on this rifle. Ammo we're going to be shooting is going to be factory Hornady 108 ELDM. I bought some of this fairly recently, I believe, from Aero Optic. So this stuff is shot well for me out to distance in several of my 6-arc uppers, and I'm excited to see how it performs out of this rifle. The other accessories you're going to see me using throughout this video will be my new tripod from Ultradyne with their Picatinny and Arca mount ball head on it. So really unique in that it can mount to both Picatinny and Arca just by threading in and out the nut here. Really neat concept. You don't have to swap heads to attach to both style rifles. And then for a rear bag, I'm going to be running my Fulcrum rear bag that was sent to me by Fulcrum for use on the channel. They're a Newark bag company based out of California. You can find details about them on my Instagram. So with that, we're going to move into the 100-yard portion of this video. You're going to see me shoot the training rifle, get it zeroed, get an idea of groups, run through a handful of drills at the 100-yard line. Then you'll see me swap over to the Brenton USA 6-arc, make sure it's zeroed, get an idea of velocity. We'll plug that into our calculator. Then we'll go shoot the match. And at the end of the video, we're going to wrap up with a summary around my experience with both rifles and how I felt like my drills prepared me to shoot the match. So if you like the sounds of it, stick around. Let me know what you're seeing in the comments. Is there other drills that you do at 100 yards to prepare yourself to shoot long range? Or are the drills that you're seeing me do something that maybe you're going to go try on the range? Let me know. Let's move into the shooting portion. As with anything on my channel, we're going to start out by getting a 100-yard zero and getting our velocity information. I'm going to use the Garmin sitting here. We're going to fire 10 rounds across the chronograph. I'm really excited to see how this AAC ammo performs and what kind of groups I get out of this Ballistic Advantage barrel. So let me, I need to put some more tension on the bipod. There's a little thumb wheel down here, tension that up. There we go. And I'm going to fire at the bottom center dot. That one flew a little bit high. All right, there's my 10 rounds. Really great velocity performance. Average of 26.54. I'm going to bump my zero down a tenth. It looks like all of those are pretty well. I'm going to bet that's a 1.2-inch group. So pretty respectable accuracy for the AAC 77 grain ammo and the Ballistic Advantage barrel. Now that I'm zeroed and have my velocity, we'll start by practicing what we can do here at 100 yards. Being able to get into position smoothly and quickly will help you out in a match. So one of my favorite things to practice is start from a standing position as you would in a match, all your gear in hand, give yourself a beep, and then go prone and as quickly as you can locate your target and put your rounds on them. So for the course of fire, I also want to simulate a match, maybe locating my targets and transitioning between targets. So what I want to do for a course of fire, I've got 12 rounds loaded up in my magazine, and I've got a target down here with 9 dots on it, 3 rows and 3 columns. I'm going to start in the lower left dot, put 1 round, transition up to the upper left, upper right, lower right. I'm going to do that 3 times until I have 4 3-round groups as quickly as I can. So this one's going to help me get into position quickly, help me transition and squeeze off confident, smooth shots, and it'll give me feedback on paper. A minute ago, I ran down and actually measured my 10-round group out of this Ballistic Advantage barrel. This AAC 77 grain ammo laid down a 1.5-inch or 1.5 MOA group. So I'm going to kind of keep that in mind as a baseline as I work through these next 12 rounds and the remainder of the afternoon practicing for my match. right, there we are. Ooh, that one flew quite high. All right, so looking at my paper, you can kind of get some instant feedback. I'll get you a close-up picture, but that lower left group appears to be pushing a little bit high. Upper left, looks like it's centered up pretty well. Upper right, I think centered up pretty well. And then lower right, definitely looks like it pushed high. So with that, you can practice this drill as many times as you want. It's really easy to do this one. It's super fun. And it'll give you quick and instant feedback. It'll help you get into position and transition quickly. Anything you can do to get up and out of the prone position will be a benefit. So if you have the ability to build a simple barricade like this, it'll be a huge help for you. Something like this, I've just got 2 different firing positions that allow me to do a little bit of positional practice off of a barricade. The better you can get positionally, the better you'll perform in a match. So what I want to do in this course of fire is just some positional practice. You can see I've got my WeBad bag strapped on the front of my rifle, and what I want to do is use 2 of my dots, so left center and right center, and put 2 rounds on a dot from a position, transition to the other, put 2 rounds on the other dot, transition back and forth until my 12 rounds are done. So what this is going to do is allow me to manage my time getting into position, work on that wobble zone, and then get some pretty instant feedback out there at 100 yards. Again, this rifle's shooting about 1.5 MOA, so we'll use that as our baseline for my shooting. Beep. All right, so I'm going to go right dot, center. Safe. 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 Hold that one high. Safe. All right. Pretty gnarly groups down there, huh? Let's take a close-up look at those. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering why I didn't use my Ultradyne tripod for rear support in that course of fire, and that's simply because I want to practice both with and without a rear supported position. So I ran down, measured my groups there at 100 yards, unsupported in the transition you just saw me shoot, and they measured about 3 MOA. So definitely they opened up pretty significantly versus some kind of supported prone position. Now with that, I want to run the same course of fire, but this time I want to use my rear tripod as a support. So I'm going to use the bag up front, the wee bag, to support the front of the rifle like we just did. But then I'm going to use my tripod, this Ultradyne here, as a rear support. Now when you start using a tripod as rear support, it can get very steady, but it's also very cumbersome. So you want to practice moving with that gear throughout the stage. So let's go ahead and repeat the course of fire. I've got 10 rounds loaded up this time. We'll start on the left dot, 2 rounds from a kneeling position, transition up just like we did. So here we go. Pick up the tripod here. So, beep. Using the tripod, you have to get it positioned. There we go. So, left dot. Safe. This is where it gets kind of cumbersome to move this tripod. Now, I've already found this tripod doesn't offer, here we go. There we go, so right side. Safe. Transition with our tripod. So much steadier with the tripod. Oh, there we go. I didn't have the tripod squarely against the stock. Safe. To manage my gear around all the obstacles. So this is where it's good to practice. Safe. Gotta find my target. Safe. Now, from what I saw, those are much smaller groups. Let's take a close-up look at how using the tripod improved the size of my groups. So a critical skill for long-range shooting is being able to dial your elevation turret on the clock to make your impacts out at distance. But how do you practice that at 100 yards when that's likely where you're zeroed? Well, you can put yourself a tall target down range. In this case, I've got 3 rows of dots. Now what I want to do is look at the bottom center dot, and then I'm going to measure up to the top center dot. So I see it's 2.1 mils from the bottom center dot up to that top center dot. Now what I can do, when I shoot this course of fire, I'm going to aim at the bottom center dot the whole time. But I'll be able to dial up 2.1 mils, which then should put rounds into the top center dot, dial back down, that'll go back down in the bottom center dot. So it's just going to give you some practice working that turret on the clock, being able to see it, etc. So for this course of fire, I've got a handful of rounds loaded up. What I want to do is lay down here, shoot my first 2 rounds at the bottom center dot on 0, transition 2.1 mils up, still holding the same dot, fire 2 rounds and go back and forth. What I should finish up with would be 2 groups, one on the bottom center dot from my 0, and then one on the top center dot where I dialed up those 2.1 mils. So let's give it a go and see what it looks like. Beep. What I'm seeing through the scope is one group just above the bottom center dot and one above the top center dot. I'll have to run down and take a close-up look at what those actually measure. All right, 100 yards with the Brenton that we're gonna run in the match tomorrow. I've already got it zeroed, so I have one center dot down there. I'm gonna aim at that. We're gonna get our velocity information, and hopefully after this, we'll have our confidence to go shoot a match. All right. I'm betting that group's probably in the ballpark of 1 MOA. Average velocity of 2632. So with that, let's go shoot a match. This is gonna be super fun.
Now that we've done some prep work at 100 yards, let's see how I did in the match. Now this first stage, I'm gonna struggle a little bit. You can see we're shooting off of the stairs there. My bipod is too wide. So I kind of move into this with a plan in my head, only to find out that my plan is not gonna work. Really got me kind of mixed up for the remainder of this stage. So I had to transition down to that bag, which again, really didn't suit what I had in mind. We're gonna be shooting this first target as a 12-inch diamond at 525 yards. We'll shoot 4 rounds. We'll transition up to a 10-inch circle at 425. And then after 4 rounds, we'll transition up to a 6-inch circle at 330. So again, I'm a little bit at this point as a shooter, a little bit maybe frustrated, and it's kind of weighing on my ability to shoot here. So second position, this is a 10-inch circle at 425. Now you think about our 100-yard practice. Here, I really feel like it was important to be able to find your target quickly, especially after I burned up so much time there at the beginning of the stage.
Safe.
Here you can see me reload. I only loaded 8 rounds in the magazine to make this transition align with a reload. And now we're at a 6-inch circle at 330. Getting kind of confused there, forgot to close my bolt. There's an impact. Then ultimately you're going to see me time out here because of how much time I burned at the beginning of the stage. So second stage, I'm a little bit maybe frustrated. Here we are, we're going to shoot off the top of this pipe, 10 circle at 425. Now this stage calls for 3 rounds from each position. Pretty steady position, pretty easy to find that target. What you're going to see is I get confused and fire 4 rounds here. So it cost me time and a wasted round.
Yeah, no.
Move down and
So just
fire
2 here,
rounds here, given the confusion that I just had. Again, you think about that 100-yard practice, the ability to transition between positions rapidly is very important.
Safe.
And came into play here in this stage. And then when I move over to these rubber tires, you're going to find me build a pretty unsupported position on those wobbly tires. Very wobbly. Going to decide to try to bring my knee up a little bit more steady, but just really wasn't enough to allow me to connect here and have a very good stage. So kind of a rough start to the first 2 stages of the day, even though I felt like the activity here was very much in line with what we practiced at 100 yards. Stage 3, I felt like this is maybe where I turned it around a little bit. We started to see some improvement. So we're going to shoot a 10-inch circle at 330 yards off of each tip of the tank trap, and then a prairie dog from the crotch of the tank trap at 425. So there's an impact right out of the gate. A little bit of windage error, but again,
Safe.
I feel pretty steady. I felt like my movement between positions here was pretty quick. And I got on the target pretty fast, so I felt like my 100-yard target really transitioning between targets, finding them, holding over. I felt like played perfectly into this stage. So a couple of impacts there.
Safe.
Feeling good. Let's go down to the crotch and we'll put some rounds on the prairie dog at 425. Very steady position here out of the center of that tank trap.
Safe.
Now this stage is very interesting. 3 positions off of the plastic pipes, but I decided to use my tripod as a rear support. The rules of the stage require you to deploy it on the clock, and you're going to see me have some mental errors here in that I forget to deploy 2 of the legs all the way out. So while I practiced at 100 yards with the tripod, I never practiced deploying it on the clock. I got in a hurry and ultimately cost myself a lot of time. So I get that deployed. We'll get the rifle up. Now we're going to shoot a square at 525 yards with 3 rounds from each position. I think you can see here, once I get on the target, it took me a little bit to find it. Again, maybe that's where more training would help. But I'm pretty steady as a shooter, just not making great shots here. There's an impact. We'll transition down. This is where definitely working with your tripod and understanding how to move it around is very important. Things that we did practice at 100 yards, and again, I'm very steady here. Got some impacts there. Now, because of all the time I burned at the beginning of the stage, I'm going to time out here. Just need to practice deploying on the clock, apparently. Next stage, this is what I really enjoy doing. This is prone shooting, multiple targets, different distances. So it's going to be a handful of rulers, the first being at 330 yards, the next at 425, and the last at 525. And you think about that 100-yard practice, that first drill we did where we shot the 4 corners of the paper, transitioning between targets, managing the recoil, getting those shots off fairly quickly. That's exactly the same principles that we'll be using here. So there's an impact. Very slim target in the wind. This was pretty challenging. Another impact. So we're going to transition over as quick as we can, find that next ruler, and get our rounds on it here at 425. Finally connected there. The last one's going to be the ruler at 525. You see, it's going to take me a little bit here to get that in my sights. Again, thinking back to the 100-yard practice, transitioning between targets, managing the recoil, getting on them quickly will be a huge benefit for you, really in any match, regardless of the distance. There's an impact. And we're going to time out on that one. Next up, this is a super fun stage, and this is where I really felt like the momentum was growing, and we really had a great run here. So this is going to be multiple targets, first being at 225. We're going to shoot 1 round, work out, 2 rounds at the far target, and then work back in. So back to that 100-yard practice, rapidly finding those targets, getting on them, holding over correctly. Skills that you got to be able to do to make those impacts. So far we're going to have a clean run. You'll see me go clean all the way out until I start to work back. So here we are at a prairie dog at 425. Impact. Mini IPSC at 525. We're going to put 2 rounds before we start to work back in. Impact. Impact. Back to that prairie dog at 425 that I just hit. You're going to see a windage error. And we'll connect on the last 2. So really good run here, wrapped up 7 out of 8. And I felt like that 4 corner drill at 100 is the exact principle that we employed here.
That was fun.
Here we are back with our Ultradyne tripod as a rear support, something we practiced at 100 yards. This is going to be positional shooting with a tripod. So what we did there to prep is going to be perfect for what we're doing here in the match. We're shooting a 10-inch circle at 525 yards. So you'll see me, I'm going to be pretty steady here, and we'll have a pretty decent run. There's an impact, the transition down. So you think about that barricade I was shooting off of at 100, just transitioning between that kneeling and standing position, being able to rapidly move between positions, manipulate your rifle, things like going safe as you transition between those positions. Those are huge. You don't want to burn up time going safe or unsafe. You want to be able to just smoothly transition between positions, especially when you're using something like a rear tripod like we are here. So I'll get down into a pretty low position, and be super stable. Again, that wee bag attached up front, critical to be able to quickly move through positions within a stage. So there's an impact. I'm very happy with that run. Now this one, super fun stage. You have to do a squat for every pound your rifle weighs. My setup was 12 pounds, so I have to do 12 squats. But you think about guys running a 20-plus pound rifle, you have to do that number of squats on the clock. Then drop down, 6-inch circle at 525 yards, prone position, 4 rounds. You're going to see a first round impact. This is awesome. This Brenton was really dialed in. I had my win figured out at this point in the match, and I'm really happy with this run. So there's our target. We'll hold over at 525. My heart's beating, but I have a pretty good position. So you think about that 100-yard practice. There's the impact. Rapidly getting down into position, getting behind your rifle, getting that natural point of aim is critical. There's 3 impacts from the prone position out of 4 shots. Great. I'm feeling good so far. I transitioned up to the rooftop for my final 4 rounds. Heart's beating. I'm feeling good on time, but I'm definitely trying to rush given the squats. You're going to see me connect one more time out of these remaining 4 rounds. But again, that 100-yard practice plays perfectly into the principles in this stage. There's another impact. And we're going to finish up the match here.
Well, that's the end of the shooting for the video. Now let's take a couple of minutes and just review kind of my thoughts on how my training regimen played into my match performance. While I'm doing that, you got to let me know in the comments down below, what did you see? Should I change something up in my training? Or did you feel like my training was applicable and maybe something you're going to take back and try for yourself? I know we're all probably wondering, how did I finish up in the match? Well, I wrapped up 16th out of 44 shooters. Not as well as I'd hoped to finish. I timed out in a couple of stages. Thankfully, I didn't zero any stages, but always room for improvement. I had 37 points or 37 impacts out of, I believe, 74 total, and the winner had something like 67. Versus the winner score, I was 55%. So definitely a ways to go, but definitely held my own, especially shooting a new rifle that was new to me. 12 pounds, this thing is very light for positional type shooting. So ultimately, happy with the performance, but always looking to do better. Now you think about my 100-yard practice. Things that I did there that were directly applicable to the match. The first was transitioning around the 4 corners of my target. That drill, it's not so much about how tight of a group am I shooting or are they centered up. You definitely saw I had plenty of misses. Really, I had many of my impacts were landing high with my 5.56 trainer rifle. But the goal when I'm training isn't so much to shoot a tiny group or get them all into those 0.5-inch-ish dots. It's more so around the mindset. It's getting down into position quickly. It's locating the target and transitioning between targets with the course of fire. 1 round around the paper, it forces you to shoot, move, transition quickly and smoothly. You saw me get tangled up at one point in the match there where I actually fired the wrong number of rounds from the wrong position. That's just a mental game. That's something that you have to train through, thinking about what you're doing versus just pulling the trigger because you're on target. Then you think about transitioning through different positions with my barricade there at the 100-yard line. Shooting off of that top position, that lower position just with the bag, unsupported on the backside. Directly applicable to what I saw in the match. In the match, I had to shoot off the tank trap. I had to shoot off of those wobbly tires. There were several barricades where I was shooting with the front supported, no rear support. That type training is directly applicable. Again, my impacts weren't landing on the red dot, but I did get a baseline where I was shooting roughly a 3 MOA group or 3-inch group there at 100 yards unsupported from the rear. Then I swapped over and used my tripod to shoot off of the same barricades. And the really cool thing about this, again, my impacts were high, I get that, but I saw my group shrink from about 3 inches down to about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So it was neat to get a baseline of what my accuracy does just by adding rear support from the Ultradyne tripod when shooting from a standing position or a barricade position. Directly applicable to the match. You saw me in a couple stages actually use this as a rear support. And man, it's amazing how much more steady your rifle is when you're using a tripod rear support with a barricade up front. Really nice, but the key there is moving between stages. You have to be able to work with the tripod. Something I didn't practice was deploying my tripod on the clock, and you saw that in one of the stages in the match. I decided to deploy my tripod on the clock to get that rear support, and I had a mental fail and forgot to extend the lower portion of 2 of my legs, something I didn't train. I wish I would have. Now I know to do that. So in my mind, yeah, the training, different rifle. I was shooting probably 2-ish inch groups. Part of that's me getting to know the rifle, getting that barrel broke in, finding the load that it likes to shoot. But really the key to my training experience was the concepts, the mental piece, getting into position smoothly, thinking through my shots and not getting confused. You saw me get confused in training. I put the wrong number of rounds a couple of times. You saw me get confused in the match. And that's just something you have to practice through. That's easy to do at 50 yards, 100 yards. You can do it anywhere. I really didn't have to go out and practice extreme distances to be able to make those impacts in the match. Now, in my opinion, the training was almost spot on. Definitely, I wish I could have spent more time, put more rounds, but I'm really happy to have the chance to go out the day before and practice at 100 yards with this new rifle. How did I feel like my rifles performed? Well, this 5.56 DMR, I'm really happy with it. You think about this rifle, fairly affordable build that we have here. This Ballistic Advantage Hanson barrel, very affordable, and it shoots quite well. That AAC ammunition, you saw that first group about 1.5 inches. You saw me work throughout the day. It seemed to settle in about 2 MOA with that AAC ammo. I fully expect if I swap to more of a higher quality, more premium load, I would see those groups shrink up. I'd love to see this rifle land between 1 and 1.5 MOA, and I'm very confident we'll see that in future content. Really cool to be able to slap this upper together in no time and have it perform 100% reliable. Very excited to see where things go with this Black Label handguard. Initial impressions are it's really slick to be able to deploy that handguard bipod, shoot with it down, and then pop it up to get out of the way for a very sleek design to shoot off a barricade. So really happy with the setup. You'll be seeing it come up in future content. How did my Brenton USA 6-ARC perform? Wow, I am impressed. So 6-ARC can be quite finicky, especially when you throw a suppressor on it. And what we saw out of this rifle was 100% reliability, great accuracy. I actually ended up shooting 2 10-shot groups with this rifle at 100 yards. Both of those landed about 1.2 inches or 1.2 MOA. In my opinion, that's great accuracy for a 10-round group. You have shooter fatigue, you have heat in the barrel. A hunting rifle, you're probably not going to be shooting 10-round strings. So 1.2 MOA out of this rifle, I'm very impressed with. Probably could fine-tune that hand loading, but for factory ammo, that's quite affordable. Great accuracy performance, very impressed with that. You'll be seeing more out of this rifle out at distance very soon. Things that I noticed I'm really impressed with out of this Brenton USA. That trigger, I am super impressed with that trigger. Very clean break, very light feeling trigger. I like how it feels in the hands. Really like that trigger. Overall, the shooting experience in this rifle is very similar to my other 6-ARCs. Light recoil, easy to shoot accurately. One of the things I like about this rifle, actually, it's hard to get on camera, but inside of this lower receiver is a kind of tensioner here under that rear pin that puts tension between the upper and lower receiver, meaning there's very little wobble here between the receivers. For me, that helps me shoot more accurately. And I believe that's why it was so easy for me to shoot those 2 10-round groups as well as I did. Some of my other ARs, I actually throw the kind of red squishy material under here. I forgot what they call them. They take up some of the slop. They just wedge in there. The AccuWedge, I believe it's called. This rifle, you don't really need that. So I like that from the factory. I like the shooting experience. Things that I didn't like about this rifle, they're small and they're ergonomic base. It's just kind of what I've become used to in a tactical rifle. So I really can't fault Brenton, but it's no ambidextrous bolt release. I don't have an ambi safety. Things like that on the clock I like because I can just put my finger up there and swipe down to release the bolt. I can work the safety while my thumb's over here. My opinion, it's not a huge deal on this rifle. It's just something that I noticed as a shooter. Overall, 100% reliable, very accurate, and allowed me to make many hits in the match. I can't fault the rifle at all for the misses. It was very windy out there that day. The winds were very switchy. I wasn't that steady, wasn't doing my best shooting. But really, you think about the performance this rifle gave. A hunting rifle that performed top half, roughly top third of a precision rifle match in tough winds, tough conditions. I'm happy with it. Let me know what you think about this Brenton. If you're thinking about a hunting AR, don't forget to check them out. Very high quality piece. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you sticking around to check out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some value in watching. If you've made it this far, I'd like to ask you to help me grow this channel. It's really easy to do that. Like this video, comment down below kind of your thoughts or what you saw. Best of all is subscribe. If you subscribe to my channel, you're in line for that next video drop, and I hope you'll join me. Finally, don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Mountains Mullets America. It's a great place for us to interact. So with that, thanks for watching. I hope you'll join me in my next video that's coming up very soon.